Well, you know, you forgot more than I'll know.
No, virtualization is, see, I've been working, when did I start with virtualization? I think it was called CPM. Anybody ever use that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about VM 370?
CPM was on before that, man.
Yeah, there's 3 in every cloud.
4740.
All of us use CP67.
No. When some of the first virtualizers came out, I started playing around with it. That's kind of how I got into it. I guess maybe because a lot of my background at IBM was in VM. And I thought, well, and then I learned that virtualization of PCs is not quite like virtualization of VM.
Slight differences.
Slight differences, slight differences. But the big thing is why do you do it? Why do you do it? It's not a performance option, obviously. But for me, a lot of it is hardware support. And as hardware got newer and newer and OS2 got older and older, it was kind of hard to get new hardware and do anything to run, right? You can do migrations. Of course, that was the classic use of the old IBM VM systems, was for migration and for testing. But this advantage, you got mobile operating systems around, you use up a lot more resource, and you may get performance hits. Not quite as bad as using Windows, but you may still get performance hits. There's several choices for what you use for virtualization, including some new ones I've found out about since I got here. Okay? If you run under Windows host, you got VirtualBox, you got Parallels Workstation, you got the Microsoft Virtual PC support, you've got VMware, and what's the other one? KVM or whatever it is? Is that what it's called?
That's under Linux. It's under Linux.
Yeah. Well, this is Linux. I'm running Linux right now. Now, if you run under Linux and the Mac, your choices are VirtualBox. Parallels Workstation runs on a Mac sometimes. And you got VMware, just for Linux, not for a Mac. I don't think they put anything out for a Mac yet. VirtualBox, one thing I liked about looking at it, it really runs on about any host platform, PC host platform. There's even a version, I did put it down there, there is an old version that will run on OS2. But I've never tried it on OS2.
But it won't run on every computer. There are some Dells that it will not run on.
I am. Plus, I also, thanks to my friend Bob St. John, got S-Vista, which was another virtualization machine. And it wasn't bad, but it sort of ran out of time. There was nobody to maintain it. Okay? The other thing I liked about VirtualBox, it was free. I run Parallels. I actually have a license for Parallels. It does run on a Mac. I have a good friend that tried it on his Mac. It didn't work well. When you try to put OS2 or ECS on it. It does cost. It's not terribly expensive. I've never figured out why they charge so much more for the Mac than they did for Intel. They did.
Because they can.
I guess because they could. I mean, they paid a lot for the Mac, so why wouldn't they pay more for the
Exactly.
software, right? I guess that was why.
That's the reason.
Virtual PC was free. And I can't tell, I've had terrible times trying to install Windows 7. So I can't tell you if the Microsoft virtualization on 7 works or not. It worked on XP, and it worked pretty well if you got all the fixes. It was free. Now it also worked on Mac, but that was only if you had the older Macs, which were Power PCs, right? VMware, I had a tough time as an individual justifying the cost of $199, which was more than the operating system. And it does support OS2. If you got a problem with OS2, forget it. They don't want to hear from you.
Let that change.
Huh?
Thought that changed.
Just
Maybe it
on-
has.
Just on
Yes.
ESXi.
Has it actually changed?
They support, I think the latest, RC, I know they support ECS under VMware Workstation. The
Okay.
biggest clunker is that USB doesn't work.
Oh, well, that's not a problem. Right?
Right.
The one that got to me is $199.
I think USB would work for that.
Pardon?
You think USB would work for that?
You would hope so.
One more thing about VMware, there's something called VMware Server, which is free.
Right. I see
It
that.
doesn't work.
It doesn't.
That's why
Well, it was paid for.
I think it
Anyway.
uses
When you install the virtualizer, whether it be virtual PC or VirtualBox or any of them, for OS2, almost all of them that I know of require either VTX, virtual support in the BIOS, or the AMD virtual support. Make sure you got plenty of memory. I have run it on this machine when it had 1 gig. I'm now bigger than that, and it does better.
What is that?
This one, I think, let's see, I think I've got 3 gigs.
But what computer is that? T something?
Oh,
Or?
this is a T61. This is the older T61. And make sure you get the current software. My preference, you'll find out, is VirtualBox. Some releases have been really good, and some releases have been really bad. The current release is pretty good, which I only saw last night. Because when I brought it up and tested on the previous release, no mouse. Period. I mean, yeah, cursor would move, but buttons didn't work at all, which made it kind of tough to do it in that way. So install the current software. Linux, you want to put in the DKMS package for Linux, which is the guy that detects when you do an upgrade. As I understand, I'm not a Linux guru at all, but it gets the proper kernel updates in for you, and you don't have to do them separately. The other one is, there are 2 pieces, well, I'll talk about that when I get to VirtualBox and stuff. There are a couple of pieces, though. Let's see, real quick. There are 2 pieces that go to VirtualBox. One is the VirtualBox extension pack. You don't really need it unless, of course, you'd like for USB to work and a few other things. And if you don't install a USB, it just doesn't work. The other one, they've got some operating system extensions. One's to the screen, to grab, and the mouse driver. Okay. Those, like on the previous release, they just crashed. They crashed your system. Current release, they work. That's why I say it varies from release to release in VirtualBox. Parallels does not have these kinds of extensions that you put in. Now, when you define the virtual machine, let's go back. I can make this, hey, it worked for me. Mark it there. I can manage to get lost in Linux easy. When you set the system up, and that was the page I had up there, you have sort of the general category is, what do you want to call it, which is not very exciting. Take your pick. The system one, you have to tell how much memory you want it to use, how much the system memory. For ECS, 512 works pretty well. ECS will work quite nicely in 512. I usually set my boot order to have the CD go in first, I do not enable APIC or any of the others, EFI. One time I made a mistake, said hardware clock to UTC. That was a bad deal. Because it really got confused about what the right time of day was. I don't have any idea what the absolute pointing device is. I've never checked. The display is not the greatest. Okay, I give it 8 megabytes of memory. I don't give it a lot. And it seems to be fun. And I don't enable the accelerations because the OS2 drivers don't really do much acceleration anyway. Storage. Virtualization uses a virtualized disk, okay? And it expands, okay? And you notice here I have everything on one IDE controller, on the primary. And I have 2 disk drives defined. One is my system drive, which I boot. The other one is a data drive that I use between various systems. And that works pretty well, unless you're trying to move it to a different machine.
You mean you can share the drive between virtual machines? Is that what you mean by share?
Yeah, I could.
Okay.
I could. But it's got stuff on it that's kind of common to all. I keep my download directory out there. Some software libraries, and so forth, that aren't specific to any operating system. Pretty much copies. And you'll see when I come up with boot manager, my 2.0, my, when it says 2.x, it's got 3 ECS systems on it. My 1.2's got 4. And so it can kind of get it all. I do not use, what's the other one here? The ICH, okay, which basically is SAT, right? And I don't use it. I can mount a floppy, and I've got a floppy. The floppy was interesting, but you know when you install ECS, you got to enter that lustrous registration key.
I never,
Huh?
I never have to enter that.
You don't ever have to put in a registration key?
No. It's on the CD.
No. No.
Oh,
It's
okay,
not.
whatever you say.
Yoga keeps sending you to that one that's got a general purpose internal Mensis registration key in it or something. And the way I got mine, Daniela wrote a virtual floppy. I don't know if any of you use it. She wrote a virtual floppy. You download it from Hobbs. It is. What I did is I took the key and under OS2, I wrote it out to the virtual floppy, and then I used Save Disk F utility to create a floppy image. And you can mount that floppy image into the virtual machine and read it. It works quite nice. I also used it with 2.1 because I had problems with 2.1 because still the drivers on 1.2. I'm sorry, not 1.2. I had problems with some of the drivers. And you can load drivers off the floppy. It has, depending on the label that's on it. But at install time, you can load those drivers in. And that's how I got 1.2 to install. I've never tried to put 1.1 on the virtual machine. Audio, you don't bring these guys up to play games and listen to movies and so forth. Okay? If you want to do that, go back to the Linux system and just do it instead of doing it in some virtual box. So I just disabled it completely. Networking. Basically, it's the NAT networking is basically a virtualized router. Okay? Gives you the DHCP address, it goes out to the host machines network. And the advanced thing, that used to not be an advanced, it is now, I guess. You can say what, you can have two cards. One is a PCNet F3, and the other one is a Intel 1000. And there are OS2 drivers for both. I use Fast 3 because 100 megabits is fast for a virtual machine. And it's stable connected. I don't do any port forward any of those crazy things. I don't use any serial ports, so I disable it. If you don't need it, disable it.
Do you know, and on virtual PC, you can only get 2 ports. Do you know if this will allow you to have more than 2 ports?
Serial ports?
Uh-huh.
I don't think so.
Okay.
You got port 1 and port 2.
You sure? Enable it, let's see what happens.
Huh?
Well, to enable the serial port, let's see what the drop down shows.
I think you're right, C is there, right, for one,
You can pick which com. And the only other thing, that's a standard com.
You have a drop down,
See if it'll go
hit the
straight
little
forward.
drop down arrow and see what your choices are. Next to the com
One,
one,
1, 2, 3.
Oh, I don't know.
could be.
Never lived.
There you go.
There we go.
You get up to com
And
4,
use
Yeah, but
Fine.
there's tabs up on the top, it says port 1, port 2.
but you only got port 1 and port 2. You could whatever port com number.
Oh, okay. All right, okay.
But you only got 2 ports.
All right, so
Yeah.
you can't get, I use a Quadtech card and have four real ports. I can't get 4 real ports on this either, okay?
And then activate.
No, I know.
Yeah, that might be one of
Com
these things
ports
where we have to put
did
a
it.
feature request in the virtual box, because there's really not a heck of a lot of reason we couldn't do it.
I think they went on the assumption that I have never seen that I can remember a machine that had more than 2 physical ports on the back of it.
Right, but you
No,
can
it
have a card.
really isn't
I
that.
mean, unless you got a bunch of card.
Well, they're probably figuring that if you're using it in virtualized, in a virtual machine anyway, then you're probably not gonna,
You're probably not going to talk to anything on the com port.
It's just,
Well, see, when we first, when my customer, we first were going to install virtual PC, on the Windows XP, we were going to put OS2 in virtual, and we have to have 3 or 4 real COM ports. And we couldn't do it because we could only get 2 ports out of it.
Yeah.
So it's not virtual, it's got to be real, because this scientific instrument is talking to the ports.
well, yeah, like I said, you probably could put in a request.
Yeah.
But now this machine, physical machine, only has 1. I mean, it's got 1 jack back there for com line.
yeah.
So it's only got 1. You probably could do a CMCIA card.
What about the USB to serial converter for that?
I'm sorry?
What about the USB to serial converter?
For my application, there's some
No, that's
concern
right.
about, because it's an older piece of equipment, and there's some timing issues, we're a little reluctant to do anything that's going through USB, straight serial, where we can set baud rate and et cetera. et
It
cetera.
does handle USB if you put in the extension. If you don't put in the extensions, you will not be able to enable the USB 2.0 controller. This one is the basic controller is a 1.0, I think. I don't know, I wasn't enabled both. In my case. Shared folders, I've never been able to make work. Well, maybe it does. Oh. It works, in other words, FAT32 here is a FAT32 partition, okay, on my Linux machine. And I can get at it with networking. Okay? And I can net use in that name and get it. Which may or may not be used, depending on what you want to do. I left it in there because I was trying to do something that didn't work. basic settings for the machine. The other one that one has to watch. Get there. Is when you put in ECS. Okay? You want to do a custom build. And don't select that the machine is a virtual machine. Probably. Because it does some strange things in the current 2.1 install. It doesn't let you define any USB ports. For one thing, which is rather unhandy. If your key, which you will have to have someday,
It does have to be on a block.
happens to be on, yeah, it happens to be on a USB drive. Because that's one way to put them in and install. You can actually attach the USB drive and install. You want to take the advanced pack. Because you want to make some selections as you go along. Okay? Turn over the next slide.
Have you put tickets in for this stuff yet?
Pardon?
Have you put the defect support tickets in for this stuff yet?
I'm
Well,
sorry.
the thing with the virtual PC, more than likely, the reason you're running into trouble is the virtual PC was, that option really is focused at virtual PC, not VirtualBox. Because at the time, VirtualBox wasn't being thought about. But you probably want to put in bug tracker tickets for this stuff so it gets looked at.
You know, it's out. I think there's a ticket out. I think I did. In the hardware, like I say, you're going through the advanced path in the hardware. Well, let's do the disk first. We've run into a peculiarity with VirtualBox on a Mac that if you don't format the installation disk in JFS, you never get it even close to being installed. It's really strange. We've opened tickets to VirtualBox on that. I mean, it just dies. Do JFS? Seems like. Now, they may have fixed that in this latest release that I put in last night, because there were already tickets on. Don't install Power Manager. Do not let a virtual machine try to do Power Manager. I mean, it's a waste of time, right? Because you can't control the real machine anyway. In the software, don't install stuff you don't use. Particularly don't put it in screensaver. That's another one that you really want the real machine to do, not the virtual. Multimedia, I install it, and the only reason I do it is sometimes Firefox has some real problems if multimedia is not installed. I don't select any audio card, right? I just install multimedia. Networking, very straightforward. I mean, just do the HTTP, and there we go. Any questions on that?
Right?
Yes.
Networking. You
Yeah.
said DHCP. Do you just do TCP/IP or do you do the whole 9 yards?
I always, well, you probably don't want to select the dialer stuff. I mean, that's useless installed for a virtual machine. Okay. I always take TCP/IP and NetBIOS over TCP/IP. I guess because it always works. And normally, just install it, unless of course it crashes. To me, the viable systems that I see for ECS or OS2 guests are these. For Linux, it's VirtualBox with Parallels. Mac Intel, VirtualBox with Parallels. Microsoft Windows, VirtualBox with Parallels, and Microsoft Virtual PC.
If someone says, I'll have any kind of host you want. You want Linux, you want Mac, you want Microsoft, I don't care. Disregarding our aversion to Microsoft for a moment, which host machine would you pick as the best one to put a virtual ecom on?
It depends on what you want to do with the host. Because I don't use the virtual ECS to do the things that the host can do just as well. Okay? If I
Open
want to-
Office, that's all they're gonna use it.
Open Office? Oh, Open Office works fine under virtual.
Yeah, no, but I mean, on the host, the only other thing they might want to put is Open Office.
Okay.
Then does it make
That's kind
any
of take
difference,
your
Linux or
pick.
Windows?
That again is kind of take your pick. I mean, this obviously, this is an Open Office. This is Impress. This has to be on Linux. Now, you know, I've got that drive called FAT32. I've got that drive called Virtual out there. And you see it if I went back into the Linux desktop, there's a drive called Virtual. I run my Windows virtual PC and my Linux virtual PC off the same drive. As a matter of fact, it's using the same definitions for the virtual machines. And it's using the same virtual disks for the virtual machines. I can run from either side. I don't have a problem.
Am I likely to?
I've got my mail out there on the FAT32 drive, and I can run it from either side.
If we have slightly older equipment, I don't mean really, really old, but older equipment, are they likely to get better results by using Linux with VirtualBox as opposed to Windows and VirtualBox?
I think probably Linux. And the reason is Linux is not the resource hog that Windows is. Okay? Linux can do more with less than Windows. As long as Linux will do the host functions that you want to do.
But you still gotta make sure you got the VT actually in.
You still got to have a VTX if you want to run OS2. Windows, I think, a Windows virtual machine, I think will run without VTX. I think you
Yeah.
can install it without VTX. I never installed Windows under Windows or Linux. And I know there are some who install Windows on their Linux. Most of all the Windows applications that I have run just fine under one. So I don't bother to put in a virtual Windows machine.
I think the newest Microsoft Virtual PC release does require or and
I think you may be right. I had such a disaster with Windows 7 that I never got that far. It took me a month to get the sucker off the machine. And then I had to order the recovery diskettes for XP so I could get that home. Because it got everything so screwed up.
But my customer, we have the 8 or 9 OS2 machines that are straight OS2 machines.
Okay.
And he runs, they have some Windows XP and some Windows 7. And the only way he is able to see, even through the Samba, is able to see the OS2 machines is through the virtual PC Windows XP.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I have no, I
I
have
have-
no server and I can't see it.
I've got my
from
home
Windows
office
7.
system running, ECS. My wife's machine is Windows XP. This machine is sometimes Windows, sometimes it's Linux.
And we had to put
Sometimes
that
it's
movie on, of
ECS,
course, but-
and I seem to be able to hook up without any problems.
The one I haven't been able to do is from Windows 7 to my OS2 server. Doesn't work. It's not working. XP
Or
worked
even
fine.
your-
There was a
Fixes
bug
don't
in
work.
Windows that I'm not sure ever got fixed.
Fixes don't work.
Does it say I can't find it? Say I can't find it?
Yeah, like on the network, if I could look for the shares.
Just can't find it. Yeah. There was no bug in Windows XP, and I'm not sure they've ever fixed it. And it was in the way that Windows tried to find machines. Supposedly, with the code, and it was in the Windows registry, supposedly with that code, Windows was supposed to first try and look for a Win server, right? And if it didn't find one, then it was supposed to do a broadcast. Of course, broadcast is cheap on a small network. The problem was, when it couldn't find Win, it decided it was failing and didn't try the broadcast. I have a registry update that I have run on I don't know how many machines. I do taxes for the ARP tax program, and those are all Windows machines. And so I run around and I zing the registry in every one of those, which says, don't bother to look for a Win server, we don't have any, just broadcast. And they work fine.
That was XP, not 7, right?
That was XP. I haven't looked at 7.
I don't have any problem with XP.
Yeah, XP
As long as I got
was
net
fine.
buoy on it.
Oh, we had trouble with XP.
I have trouble with it.
We had trouble with XP seeing the other machine, the other XP machine. It would come back, I can't find that guy. And as soon as I zap the registry, it'd say, oh, there he is.
So what do you, what's this, some little thing you downloaded someplace?
No, I wrote it.
And you're gonna send that to all of us, correct?
Well, I think I found a reference to it on the internet. I'm trying to remember where. I mean, it's just a small little registry update file. It's about 4 or 5 lines.
Remember the keyword name? It's Ellen something. I forget what it was. Ellen.
Ellen.
That's just Ellen Post.
Something host. I don't know. I got the file on this machine.
Probably Ellen
Announce,
Post.
tell them announce.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
that sounds like
yeah,
it.
land manager announce. So they.
No one announced. It's not announced. I know that.
Let's do it.
Sounds right.
I'll show it to you.
Broadcast your name.
I got a question for you. As
Yeah.
far as hosting under Windows, but trying to share files between your hosted OS and your virtualized OS with the virtualized being ECS. How have you had any success with that? Or have you tried that?
Running OS ECS as a host?
No, as a client.
Okay.
But being able to share files between Windows machine and the client software under VM.
Let's see. Yes, I've made that work.
I've done
I'd show it to you if I was under
I did
Windows.
a whole bunch of them, long file names, everything.
Yeah, it was all smooth.
Yeah.
It acts like a network.
Now, I had to make sure that I had the folder shared. I created 3 partitions, and one partition which was I shared. And so this is where my data is, so that my Windows XP could look at it, and my virtual econ could look at it. And I
Now,
would-
You may not be able to see this boot manager screen.
on the host, we were running
It's
TCP.
pretty dim. Well, if it looks a little strange, it's because I installed the German version last.
Probably.
And that's what I got in, that's what I got in the boot manager.
Windows is easier.
Pretty descriptions, and all the German descriptions for boot. This is, this time, this is full screen. Now, it's not widescreen. So you're going to see some blank space on the side. But it's just a normal boot.
Oh, yeah, the resolutions that are available are limited to like SVGA type resolutions or?
That's the other, with the display, oh, I forgot to mention that when you do the hardware, take grad. Grad's it. Gen grad. Yeah, Gen grad is it. VirtualBox does furnish a update to the Gen grad DLL, which I'm not sure is required. However, there is a mouse driver that you do want out there. It just comes up. I don't think I've got anything marked for shares. On the Linux, so I can't really go to the share on Linux.
So what's the overhead look like in terms of performance?
What's the overhead? I have no idea.
Both was reasonably fast.
It moves along pretty good.
In general, you're not gonna see it. Unless you're,
I was doing some
unless you're
testing
running an IO intensive.
for Jim
app,
Reed,
you're not
that's
gonna
why
see it.
Unity Tools is out here.
All right. Got file scan?
I don't think I tested FileStar under virtual.
It works under, if you're using the virtual PC from Microsoft, FileStar works fine.
I didn't, I tried. That's my home page, it doesn't. Let's see, I'm gonna go somewhere that's, shouldn't be in cache. Anybody ever been to this one?
Now, what is it?
Why would you want to do that?
I don't know. But Firefox works just fine. I mean, I can get to any place in the web.
Does it work as well as it does on OS 2?
This is OS 2.
It is OS2.
So it's going to crash your virtual machine in about 10 minutes.
Well, it's interesting. You know, Firefox that's on here, 2.1, is newer than the Firefox that's on Ubuntu.
Well,
They're
that's,
still at 3 point something, point something. They just
but that's the Ubuntu release. You can always get newer stuff.
Yeah, that's the
Depending on
Ubuntu.
what's-
But they have never gone beyond 3.6 point, I can't remember what it is.
I think that's policy. I think basically, they only host the stuff that they're stable releases, and it's up to you to get the other stuff from elsewhere.
That sounds about right.
Any other questions on what works and what doesn't?
What about SMP?
Supposedly, yes. I would not try it with paddles,
With what?
the Russian version of ACP IPSD. That one, that's when I quit enabling it, and I quit putting it in. Because every time I tried it,
There's really no benefit to it.
not really. Well,
Well,
now my friend that runs on a Mac, he's got 4 processors. And I think he runs 2. Let's CCS use 2.
The only real
He's got
problem
plenty.
yeah.
that we had when I ran it on the XP and ran this was because we were hooking to an instrument and had to have the 2 serial ports.
Yeah.
Even though it says we're connected fine, occasionally it didn't talk nice to the instrument, and the instrument would hang up.
Hang up.
And so we just determined, now we're just not going to run this. We're going to run straight economy.
Yeah, if you got something like that, I mean, I would do it. I mean, if I'm gonna drive an instrument from it, and that's what the PC's done. I mean, I bought my Lenovo, what is it, 55, which is dual processor machine, and I think I paid $250 for it. 2 gig memory. And probably 200, I think I had about 200 gig a day. I wouldn't fiddle with virtual. I mean, if you want to run, a dedicated application, why not you buy, you buy these machines?
This is what my client wanted to do. He said, yes, sir, give me the check.
Well, you
Yes,
got
sir.
to advise your client, you know, spend a lot of years.
Say
How
again.
old is the instrumentation and its software?
Oh, my heavens, it's 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And
I mean, in
runs
there,
fine.
one thing you can run into with virtualization is that the software may be running a tight timing loop. And once the serial port is virtualized, it may not come in at the same rate as they expected. It can overwhelm them.
Okay.
You know, it used to not full screen this thing.
You fixed it.
They fixed it, because it wasn't full screen. I mean, I
thought it was this morning that it
But the
was-
release I put on last night.
I thought it was this morning that it wasn't full screening. Or was that before you upgraded?
Before I upgraded.
Yeah, good. It's fixed.
There, another option, which I use a lot, part of it is this option, which puts a full screen of the virtual machine in a window. And if I resize the window, it gets bigger or smaller.
Did you ever see the host desktop underneath?
The host desktop, we don't know about it.
No, I didn't know about it.
Well, it's there.
You can see it.
Huh?
Well, I'm thinking like a DOS VirtualBox. Is this-
Well, yeah, but remember, because I don't want the bars showing up on the presentation, I've got them hidden, and I'll send a mouse over them. And there's the top bar, and if I go down to the bottom, I get the bottom bar.
Right.
And this feature, this was fairly new for VirtualBox. To be able to put the virtual machine screen, because I used to bring it up, but if I picked a big resolution on the OS2 machine, well, I'd wind up with scroll bars in here. In other words, it would be like this. See where the scroll bars are? In here? And they made that fix a couple of releases ago. Or made that addition where you could suck it into the window.
VirtualBox is from Oracle? They own it?
No, it's interesting. Actually, it came from Sun. Originally, didn't it?
Actually, came from Newt.
Huh?
Came from Newt.
Yeah.
Newt, St. Albans.
Newt's
Right.
Oh, okay.
But actually, Intertech, really. I don't know.
Steve probably answered that better than I can.
No,
Virtual
PC.
It was virtual
For a while, it was
PC.
Sun.
Yeah, but,
VirtualBox.
That was a port.
Well, virtual, new, we were Warpstock 2002, or 2006, I'm sorry. Warpstock 2006, New was sitting there building,
which is what he does. He
Originally,
sits there and talks
yeah.
and codes. Yeah, I know.
he was building the initial, working on VirtualBox at that
Yeah,
time.
what I don't know is whether that was.
And then did it go to Sun?
Huh? Nah, well before that.
He wasn't Sun at
The way it worked, the
Huh?
history is.
He wasn't Sun.
He wasn't Sun at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
No,
They went to Oracle.
Sun bought Innotek
Right.
explicitly to get VirtualBox.
Yeah.
Well, that's right.
Well, he
Yeah.
said he was a Sun employee at that time.
Yeah, he
They
was.
bought- they bought-
And now he's an Oracle employee. I don't think he left them.
Okay.
So I was gonna see him last week. and
I think they've got a
got
pretty,
myself to try.
well, it's really funny, so, like I said, the release before this, man, I'd come in here with my cursor, you know? And I'd go right mouse button, nothing happened. I go left mouse button, nothing happened. I go click on, for instance, my, system, nothing happened. I couldn't get a command prompt up, I couldn't get anything up. I mean, it just quit. But now it's got pretty good shape.
Pardon?
What's the version of the VirtualBox?
This is 4.1.4.
He's basically right.
Came out like a third of October. I tell you, I was a little concerned last night when I thought, I think I better put this thing in. But it's better than it works than it doesn't. So the product's good. The code is good.
Yeah. I checked the week.
One of the things they fixed, I didn't see how you go cursor in and out. That didn't work before. I had to use the control key.
Chuck, 5-minute warning.
I'm ready for that.
Well, typically, that mouse integration is an extension.
Yeah.
Because even
It's in the additions. It is in additions. They have a virtual mouse driver. Yep. Do that.
Oh, it's short.
And that comes on a little,
It's short. I can't see. Yes.
You include that in the install like you did on the PC? That include the additions?
yeah, the additions come on a CD.
What's this? What did he ask for?
Well, how old are the additions at this point?
Probably brand new.
August?
Uh-huh.
August?
He's still
You know, they're too big, here's the OS2.
Hey, you gotta remember, those guys still like OS two. It's a
Yeah.
matter of, you know, how much they could do on Oracle. and how
The
much they can
additions,
do on-
Yeah.
That's why.
you
it's interesting to see what
replace
happens.
GenGrad DLL.
Interesting.
They tell you to replace Live C063. I did a compare. It's identical to the library that's in 2.1. I mean, identical. Compare, I'll compare you.
So maybe that was for a slightly older version of Econ.
Possible.
Back level library.
And you've got guest sys and VBox mouse sticks. These are the guys that help you with the mouse pointer integration. This VBox service, I don't know what it does. You put it in a startup command. It does.
And those device drivers, you just add them to your config sys.
Yeah, you rim out your regular mouse.sys.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And put this one in. And the readme is, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, they had you go into, you know, boot, alt F1, command line, copy the GenGrad and copy the Live C. I started copying the Live C and I thought, I think I'll do a compare. Because they tell you to copy Live C to OS2 DLL. And it turns out Live C for us is in ECS DLL. So I compared the two.
So as I understand, other than being able to find copies of virtual PC, there's nothing that you can run in OS2 to be able to run a Windows virtual.
I don't think we ever got S Vista stable enough for that. did we?
Yeah, S Vista could be pretty flaky. Okay. If you need a Windows
Production
machine,
quality, it's really virtual.
you can buy a system that run Windows for probably less than $200. Got one for 30. You measure, buddy. Yeah.
There is an old version of VirtualBox that will run on Windows, but you don't have, the reasons I, want to use it versus virtual PC is if it had been built into the USB, which it doesn't, pass through USB, and it doesn't have sound. So you
Well, I
have.
don't install sound
But
anyway.
actually,
But-
you're right there, that actually is an option for him. He could run with the 1.6.
It's normally
Yeah,
shut down.
1.6, but it's
Reboot.
only still only got two virtual ports, but yeah.
Yeah, but
But
the thing is, all
for
you
me, in
really
the case,
use
what
it-
I'm looking for is I run my OS2 with virtual PC because I
Yeah,
even run Excel.
1.6 does run on.
But
Now,
this
if
is
you-
the
That was
other-
fine, I like it,
If you save that, you know, you can save those virtual disks, and then would you like,
Machine state?
like the virtual machine is in a file, right?
Yeah, it's actually a file.
Could you like take that to a machine that had Windows VirtualBox and will it boot up in there? You have any idea?
I run the same file in Windows and Linux.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
That's pretty good.
It's actually binary.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense, but you never know.
I wouldn't surprise me if his editions run under Microsoft Virtual PC as well.
Uh-huh.
Well, they do.
Yeah,
Yeah, they both work.
yeah, probably.
You mean the virtual image?
the additions to VirtualBox?
Oh, I see,
The
okay.
OS2 additions to VirtualBox would probably be the best OS2 additions for Virtual PC.
Gotcha.
Also.
I'm not so sure about that, because you're talking different APIs, but we don't know how they hook into the API. to
Yeah.
VirtualBox.
One way to find out.
They're entirely running.
Yeah, see,
in
I
Virtual-
I
had
have
this-
this run written by the same
Where is it?
people.
Yes.
That,
I had this
would not
crazy,
doubt it, but you can't be sure.
Yeah, we can't be sure, but
I have this crazy
Actually, I-
Fat 32 disk called virtual.
They work, but I did find.
And that's where all of them, they both run out.
Editions
Both Windows runs out of there and
Newer versions.
Yeah.
Microsoft versions.
Linux runs out of there.
Under the.
I learned the hard way to keep a copy of the VXD file that
Yeah.
virtual PC makes.
And it
Keep a
did
copy
work.
of that, because it sometimes will.
Yeah, I've got those also.
And I just copy that.
Oh,
yeah,
I just assumed that it would run. I mean, I run Thunderbird from both sides. Because they're my mail folder.
Do you want to break for a
Yeah.
minute before Lewis's networking?
Oh, is that next?
Yeah.
No.